In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world still clings to the last tendrils of sleep, there exists a hidden realm, a shadow world where secrets fester and darkness takes form. This is where the untold stories linger, where truths lie buried beneath layers of silence and deceit. Tonight we delve into one such shadow, one that cloaks a chilling tale of love, betrayal, and murder. The story begins in a seemingly ordinary neighborhood, a place where laughter once filled the air and the rhythm of everyday life beat steadily like the pulse of a heartbeat. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered, relationships frayed, and unspoken emotions brewed storms capable of shattering lives. It's a tale that reminds us, appearances can be deceiving, and behind the calm facade, darkness can loom with deadly intent. Our story's stage is set in a modest suburban home, a place that should have been a sanctuary but instead became the site of a nightmare. The walls, which once echoed with joy and warmth, would soon witness a tragedy so profound it would ripple through the community, leaving scars that time may never fully heal. The protagonist, a woman whose name became synonymous with mystery and heartbreak, lived a life that, on paper, seemed enviable. She was beloved by friends and family, known for her kindness and grace. Yet, like so many, her life harbored secrets that only the shadows knew. The quiet moments of her life were punctuated by whispered conversations and furtive glances, signaling a story far more complex than anyone imagined. As dawn breaks and the first light filters through the curtains, the normalcy of the morning belies the dark events that have unfolded just hours before. Neighbors recall the subtle shifts, the hushed phone calls, the hurried departures, the uneasy silence that replaced familiar greetings. Something had fractured, and the fractures would soon reveal a truth no one was prepared for. The police were called to the scene under the pretense of a routine welfare check. But what they discovered was far from routine. The evidence was subtle at first: a misplaced item, an unexplained bruise, a door left ajar. Yet these small details began to weave a tapestry of suspicion and dread. Every step forward uncovered layers of deception, each more disturbing than the last. Behind closed doors, the perfect illusion began to crumble. The woman's life was entangled in a web of secrets that stretched beyond the boundaries of her home, entanglements with people she trusted, and betrayals that cut deeper than anyone could imagine. The peaceful neighborhood would soon be thrust into a vortex of fear and uncertainty. This is more than just a crime story. It is a human story. It is a story of desires and failures, of love corrupted by jealousy and rage. It challenges our notions of safety and trust, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable truth that evil often wears the mask of normalcy. How well do we really know those closest to us? And what happens when the shadows within them are finally unveiled? Tonight, as we peel back the layers of this dark narrative, we will explore not just the events themselves, but the lives forever altered by this tragedy. We will hear from those who lived it, those who investigated it, and those who still seek answers. This is a journey into the heart of darkness, a chilling reminder that behind every smile, there can lurk a secret waiting to be revealed. Stay with us as we unravel the threads of deception and betrayal. The shadows are about to be unveiled. The crime scene, a place where hope once lived and trust was betrayed, holds the key to unraveling the mystery that has gripped this quiet neighborhood. It is here that the shadows deepen, where silence screams, and every detail could be a clue to what truly happened. As the first light of dawn creeps over the horizon, the street remains eerily still. The modest home, once a sanctuary, now stands cordoned off by bright yellow tape, a glaring border between the outside world and the unsettling truth locked within. The tape flutters lightly in the morning breeze, a fragile barrier that holds back the tide of whispers and speculation from the curious onlookers gathered just beyond. The air feels heavy with anticipation, a thick tension that permeates every corner of the scene. Police officers move methodically, their faces set in grim determination, their eyes scanning for anything out of place. Forensic specialists crouch down, photographing and cataloging every detail. A scuffed shoe print in the soft earth by the garden path, a shattered window frame that tells of forced entry, a bloodstain faint but unmistakable on the hardwood floor inside. Inside the house, the atmosphere is suffocating. The familiar comfort of a family home is shattered, replaced by an oppressive quiet that feels unnatural. The rooms are frozen in time, each one holding fragments of the life that was violently disrupted. The living room couch, still slightly indented from where someone last sat. The kitchen table strewn with half-finished cups of tea and scattered newspapers, all silent witnesses to a night that ended in horror. In the corner of the living room, a child's toy lies abandoned, its bright colors dulled by dust and shadow. It's a poignant symbol of innocence lost, a silent reminder that this crime has shattered more than just property. It has torn through the very fabric of a family's life. The walls, once adorned with family photographs and cheerful paintings, now seem to close in, their silent watch intensifying the weight of the tragedy. Near the back door, a broken lock hangs loosely on its hinges, telling a story of desperation and intrusion. It was the point of no return, the threshold crossed by a stranger whose intentions were dark and merciless. The garden outside, usually a place of peace and play, now holds footprints that tell a tale of frantic movement and panic. The forensic team moves with quiet precision. Gloves snap on, tools are wielded with practiced care, and every piece of evidence is bagged and labeled with painstaking detail. The investigators know that within these fragments lies the truth, the sequence of events that will finally expose what happened in the dead of night. Yet the scene also holds its secrets tightly. Despite the flurry of activity, the truth remains elusive. Some clues are contradictory, others perplexing. A window left slightly open where none should be, a door found locked despite signs of forced entry, a faint scent of something unfamiliar lingering in the air. These contradictions fuel the tension, leaving even the most seasoned officers questioning what really transpired. Among the investigators, whispers circulate, theories, doubts, half-formed ideas that hint at something far more complex than a simple break-in. Was this a robbery gone wrong? Or something more sinister, something planned and calculated? The scene offers no easy answers, only questions that demand scrutiny. Beyond the physical evidence, the emotional residue hangs thick in the air. Neighbors recall the family's normal routines, the everyday smiles exchanged across fences, the sounds of laughter and life that once filled these rooms. Their faces betray shock and sorrow, a community struggling to reconcile the violence with the peaceful facade they thought they knew. The crime scene also reveals the cracks in that facade. Through interviews and witness statements, a picture emerges of tensions simmering beneath the surface, disputes whispered about but never fully voiced, relationships strained and stretched thin. The house becomes a symbol not just of the crime, but of hidden struggles, of secrets that refuse to stay buried. As the day wears on, the sun climbs higher, casting stark light on the scene. Shadows retreat but do not disappear, lingering like ghosts in the corners of rooms and minds alike. The investigation intensifies, detectives piecing together timelines, reconstructing movements, trying to understand the sequence that led to the tragic climax. In the midst of this, the victim's story begins to surface, not just the facts, but the human behind them. A mother, a daughter, a friend, a neighbor. Her life is recalled in fragments. Laughter at family gatherings, quiet moments of resilience, dreams and fears shared only with those closest to her. The crime scene, once just a place, becomes a memorial, a testament to a life interrupted but not forgotten. The relentless search for answers drives the investigation forward, propelled by the hope that justice will bring some measure of peace. The crime scene, with all its chilling silence and fractured details, is the first chapter in that journey. A place where shadows are unveiled and the truth waits to be found. The investigation began swiftly, yet methodically, as the local police force stepped into a complex web of mystery surrounding the brutal crime. This phase would prove pivotal. The moments when evidence, interviews, and intuition converge to form a clearer picture of what transpired inside that modest suburban home. The lead detective, a seasoned professional with a keen eye for detail, arrived on the scene early in the morning. He immediately ordered the preservation of the area, ensuring no unauthorized personnel could disturb potential evidence. His experience taught him that the first few hours were critical. Clues could vanish or degrade, witnesses could become unreliable, and the narrative could shift forever. The forensic team worked diligently, collecting every shard of glass, every fingerprint, every trace of DNA that might tell the story of that fateful night. Inside the dim living room, they found minute fibers on the furniture, fibers that didn't belong to the household, indicating a possible struggle. The shattered window was more than just an entry point. It was a silent witness to a desperate attempt to flee or perhaps to gain forced access. Meanwhile, detectives conducted neighborhood canvasses. They spoke with neighbors, some cooperative and others hesitant, painting a mosaic of the community's perception. One elderly woman recalled hearing raised voices late at night, but dismissed it as typical domestic quarrel noise. A young man admitted seeing a shadowy figure lurking near the back gate hours before dawn, but was too frightened to come forward earlier. Investigators also delved into the victim's life. Interviews with family members revealed a man with no known enemies, a hard-working father who kept to himself, raising his children with care. Yet, subtle undercurrents surfaced. Disputes over money, a recent job loss, a mysterious phone call in the days before the incident. These threads complicated the narrative, challenging the initial assumption of a random break-in. Digital forensics became a crucial component of the investigation. Experts retrieved phone records, text messages, and social media activity. Suspicious communications hinted at threats from an unknown source. The victim's last calls revealed a conversation with a person whose identity remained unclear, a shadow on the edges of the case. As days passed, the investigation intensified. Detectives mapped timelines, cross-checked alibis, and followed leads that twisted and turned. Each breakthrough was met with new questions. Was this a robbery gone wrong, or something more sinister? Was the perpetrator someone close, or a stranger? With every new piece of evidence, the case grew more complex. The emotional toll on the community was palpable. Families locked their doors tighter, children were warned not to play outside late, and whispers of fear and suspicion spread. The investigation wasn't just about facts. It was about restoring a sense of safety, justice, and closure. The lead detective remained resolute. Every detail mattered, every voice counted. The investigation would continue until the truth emerged, and those responsible were held accountable. This was not just a case file, it was a mission to uncover justice from the shadows. As the investigation advanced, the spotlight gradually shifted from the crime scene to the individuals who might be connected to the tragedy. Identifying suspects was never a straightforward process. It required a delicate balance of fact, intuition, and understanding human nature. The detectives were cautious not to jump to conclusions, aware that wrongful accusations could devastate innocent lives and derail the case. The first suspect emerged from the victim's close circle, a longtime acquaintance with a complicated history. This man had been seen arguing with the victim in the days leading up to the incident. His motives were unclear, but the detectives noted a simmering resentment that could have escalated into violence. When questioned, he appeared defensive, his answers vague, further deepening suspicion. Another suspect was a neighbor known for volatile behavior. Over the years, he had been involved in several minor disputes with the victim's family over property boundaries and noise complaints. His temper was notorious in the neighborhood, and many feared confrontations with him. Yet when interviewed, he denied any involvement and provided an alibi, supported by others, complicating the investigation. Detectives also examined a more distant figure, a recent employee who had been fired from the victim's workplace. Though he had no direct ties to the family, his departure had been abrupt and bitter. The timing of the incident aligned suspiciously close to his dismissal. Yet without concrete evidence linking him to the crime, he remained a person of interest but not a confirmed suspect. Throughout this process, the detectives faced the challenge of separating rumor from reality. Gossip and hearsay often painted a murky picture. The detectives had to rely on facts, corroborated statements, and forensic evidence. The community's tight-knit nature sometimes hindered the inquiry, as loyalties and fear of reprisal made witnesses hesitant to speak openly. To break through these barriers, the investigation team employed a range of techniques, from discreet surveillance to undercover interviews. They observed suspects' routines, looking for inconsistencies or suspicious behavior. Phone records and financial transactions were scrutinized for clues, revealing hidden connections and possible motives. Interrogations became a critical tool. Detectives learned to read body language, detect hesitation, and exploit contradictions in stories. One by one, they pieced together timelines, cross-checking alibis with phone GPS data and witness accounts. The web of suspects slowly began to untangle, revealing hidden relationships and unexpected alliances. At times, the pressure mounted. Suspects grew hostile or uncooperative, legal restrictions limited the scope of questioning, and public scrutiny intensified. The media closely followed every development, sometimes sensationalizing minor details and influencing public opinion. Despite these obstacles, the detectives remained steadfast. They understood that the truth was often buried beneath layers of deception, fear, and pain. The suspects were more than just potential perpetrators. They were human beings with their own stories, motives, and complexities. The investigation's turning point came when a breakthrough piece of evidence surfaced, a piece that would narrow the list of suspects and point toward the person truly responsible for the crime. But before that revelation, the detectives had to carefully navigate the fragile dynamics of suspicion and trust, ensuring that justice would not only be done, but seen to be done. With a clearer understanding of the suspects, the investigation entered a more intense and critical phase. The detectives were no longer just gathering surface-level information. They were now delving deep into the tangled web of connections, motives, and hidden truths that surrounded the case. The stakes were high. Every clue uncovered could bring them closer to the perpetrator or send them down a misleading path. The initial stages of the investigation had provided a framework. Who was involved, what relationships existed, and where tensions lay. But now the detectives faced the challenge of sifting through layers of complexity. They had to analyze contradictory statements, interpret subtle behaviors, and identify inconsistencies that could reveal deception. Advanced forensic techniques played a pivotal role. The crime scene evidence was sent to specialized labs for DNA analysis, fingerprint matching, and trace material examination. Every detail was scrutinized under powerful microscopes, and even the tiniest speck of evidence was considered crucial. These scientific insights often contradicted witness testimonies or suspect alibis, leading to new lines of inquiry. Simultaneously, the detectives employed digital forensics experts to comb through electronic devices. Phones, computers, and security cameras were examined for messages, locations, and suspicious activity. In the digital age, a suspect's online footprint could be as telling as physical evidence. Deleted texts, encrypted communications, and social media posts became vital pieces of the puzzle. The investigation deepened with interviews that went beyond surface questioning. Detectives revisited witnesses multiple times, probing deeper to uncover hidden details. Some witnesses were reluctant at first, but gradually opened up, revealing information that had been buried by fear or loyalty. These testimonies helped reconstruct timelines with greater accuracy and highlighted discrepancies in suspect accounts. Psychological profiling became a useful tool. Experienced profilers analyzed suspect behaviors, motives, and personality traits, offering insights into who was most likely to have committed the crime. These profiles were not definitive answers, but provided a valuable perspective for directing investigative efforts. At times, the investigation revealed uncomfortable truths. Friends became suspects. Family secrets surfaced. The detectives had to remain objective, recognizing that emotional entanglements could cloud judgment. They maintained professional detachment, ensuring every lead was followed, no matter how personal or sensitive. The team worked around the clock, coordinating efforts between forensic labs, intelligence units, and field investigators. Information was shared swiftly but securely, and weekly briefings kept everyone aligned. The complexity of the case required collaboration and trust among all involved. Meanwhile, the community's anxiety grew. Public pressure mounted on law enforcement to solve the case quickly. Rumors and speculation spread, sometimes hindering the investigation by encouraging false leads or panic. The detectives carefully managed communication, balancing transparency with discretion. The investigation's deepening phase also brought breakthroughs. Unexpected evidence came to light, a hidden camera's footage revealing suspicious movement, a financial trail suggesting motive, or a forensic match disproving a suspect's alibi. Each discovery reshaped the investigation's direction, requiring the team to reassess prior assumptions. This phase demanded patience and meticulous attention to detail. The detectives understood that haste could lead to mistakes, yet time was a critical factor. They carefully documented every finding, building a comprehensive case file that would withstand scrutiny in court. As the pieces of the puzzle gradually aligned, the investigation edged closer to uncovering the truth. But the path was still fraught with uncertainty, requiring vigilance, resilience, and unwavering dedication. The investigation had reached a fever pitch. As Detective Harris stood in the silent, sterile lab room where the coroner had laid out the final autopsy reports, he couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something darker, more orchestrated, lurked beneath the surface. Victims from entirely different parts of the city, different social backgrounds, and yet all bore the same telltale marks. The branded symbol carved near the sternum, like a twisted signature. It was time to dig deeper, beyond random crimes, beyond coincidence. It was time to explore a possibility that no one wanted to entertain. A cult. The catalyst. A tip from the shadows. It began with a whisper. A former mental health patient named Daniel Keats, recently released after years of therapy, approached the police with unsettling claims. He'd once been part of an underground spiritual group called the Path of Ascension. Keats described it not as a religious community, but a cult. One that held secretive nighttime rituals in abandoned buildings, where blood was used for purification, and members vanished without notice. Detective Harris initially dismissed the claim. There were too many conspiracy theories floating around the city, but one line in Keats's confession froze the detective's breath. They branded us, to claim us, same place they branded the girl in the alley. Keats was referring to Maria Dawson, a missing teenager found 2 weeks earlier with the same sunburst-shaped scar beneath her sternum. It was no coincidence. Harris had no choice now but to take the claim seriously. The Path of Ascension. According to Keats, the cult had been led by a charismatic yet shadowy figure known only as Lucian Cross. No one knew where he came from. Some said he had ties to Eastern mysticism. Others believed he was a failed academic obsessed with unlocking psychic powers through ritual pain. Lucian demanded loyalty, enforced through sacrifice. New members were slowly isolated from their families and trained to believe their suffering had divine purpose. The branding was not just symbolic, it was ritualistic. It initiated them into a tiered order. Keats described at least 3 known locations: an old theater downtown, an abandoned textile factory on the city's west end, and a farmhouse miles outside the city limits. All had been used as ceremonial grounds. Harris sent undercover units to all 3. Only one, the textile factory, revealed anything useful. Evidence of dried blood, a circle of candles, and a camera lens hidden in the rafters. Someone had been documenting everything. The surveillance footage. When they recovered the hidden tapes, what they saw chilled them to the core. The footage showed over a dozen people dressed in robes, chanting around a makeshift altar. A young woman, blindfolded and trembling, was led into the center. The voice directing them, calm, deep, and hypnotic, was unmistakably male. "Let her fear burn, let her rise." After that, the screen went black. Through voice comparison technology and a hidden mic planted by one brave agent, they finally connected the voice to Vincent Graves, a local philosophy professor fired years earlier for teaching forbidden doctrines. Graves had reinvented himself, his name legally changed. His lectures transformed into podcast sermons that spoke of enlightenment through pain, of freedom through obedience. He now went by Lucian Cross, a sinister pattern detective. Harris and his partner, Agent Naomi Lane, laid all the evidence across their war room. The connections clicked like gears in a locked mechanism. All the victims had disappeared near locations tied to the Path of Ascension. All were found with the same branding. All had been reported missing around the time of known celestial events. New moons, eclipses, solstices. This wasn't random. The cult operated on a calendar. Their sacrifices were coordinated. The farmhouse raid. They couldn't wait. They had to act before the next celestial event, the winter solstice, just 4 nights away. With a team of 14 officers, drones, and thermal cameras, Harris and Lane led a midnight raid on the farmhouse. It was remote, surrounded by woods, and eerily quiet. Inside, they found what they feared, an underground chamber beneath the floorboards. More than 20 people were chained to the walls. malnourished, drugged, and whispering praises to a god no one else could see. And there, at the altar, a throne made of bones, sat Lucian Cross. He didn't resist, he simply smiled. You stopped nothing. You only delayed the ascension. Post-raid fallout. The media exploded. Cult leader arrested in midnight massacre dominated headlines. But while Lucian was in custody, he spoke little. His followers refused to testify. Some even took their own lives, claiming they had seen the other side. Worse yet, investigators found that several of Lucian's sermons were still circulating online. His words were being downloaded, reshared, and translated. Even after his arrest, this wasn't over. The haunting realization weeks later, Agent Lane received a package at her doorstep, unmarked, with only a single flash drive inside. On it was one video, Lucian Cross in a pre-recorded message. You think you've caged me, but my words are the seed, and the seed has taken root. You will see me again. Behind him stood new initiates, new faces. One of them, Lane swore, looked just like the missing girl they'd never found. As the courtroom doors swung open, a sea of curious spectators, seasoned journalists, and grim-faced legal professionals flooded the room. The trial of Isabel Moreau had captured the nation's attention, not simply because it involved a gruesome murder, but because of the quiet, seemingly fragile woman accused of orchestrating a blood-soaked crime so calculated and cold that it defied belief. Isabel entered the courtroom flanked by her legal team. Dressed in a muted gray blazer and white blouse, her demeanor was unreadable, neither remorseful nor angry. She kept her gaze fixed straight ahead, ignoring the flashes of cameras and the hushed murmurs echoing through the courtroom. The prosecution was led by a fiery and articulate attorney named Evelyn Carter. Known for her ruthless cross-examinations and airtight arguments, Carter had built her reputation on high-profile convictions. To her, this case was open and shut. Isabel had the motive, the means, and the opportunity. The defense, however, was spearheaded by Alexander Rhodes, a sharp-witted criminal defense attorney known for pulling miracles out of thin air. Rhodes believed that public perception had condemned Isabel long before the trial began, and he was determined to dismantle every assumption, one piece at a time. Opening statements, Carter began her opening with gravity. She painted a chilling image of what happened in the lakeside villa: a man stabbed to death, a missing timeline, and a woman with blood under her fingernails. "We will show you," she declared, "how Isabel Moreau planned this act of violence, carried it out without hesitation, and tried to manipulate the narrative to cast herself as the victim." Rhodes responded with poise. "This case," he said, "is about shadows. The prosecution sees what they want to see in the dark, but we will shine a light and reveal not a murderer, but a woman ensnared by grief, isolation, and misjudges." As both sides took their positions, the judge, stern-faced and seasoned, signaled for the prosecution to begin their presentation of evidence. The forensics. The courtroom buzzed as the prosecution's forensic expert took the stand. Crime scene photographs were displayed. Blood-splattered curtains, the shattered glass from the balcony door, the blood-soaked rug. Each image tightened the emotional noose around Isabel. Carter pointed to a key piece of evidence: Isabel's fingerprints on the murder weapon, a kitchen knife buried deep in the victim's sternum. "Explain to the jury how significant this is," Carter urged. The forensic analyst nodded. The angle of entry, the depth, it was a deliberate, forceful act, not self-defense. This was rage. Rhodes stood up. Would the presence of her fingerprints be surprising, considering it was her home and kitchen? The expert hesitated. "Not inherently." "Exactly," Rhodes said. "You found no gloves. Isn't it possible she picked it up after the incident, or before, to move it?" The expert admitted it was possible. It was a crack in the armor. Witness testimonies. The prosecution called neighbors, a maid, and Isabel's close friend, Marina Devereaux. Marina described a strained marriage, whispered fights behind closed doors, and a growing sense of paranoia in Isabel's behavior weeks before the murder. "She told me," Marina said, voice quivering, "that she thought someone was watching her." Carter jumped on this. "And how did she react when you expressed concern?" She laughed. She said, "Maybe I want them to see. It scared me." The courtroom froze, but Rhodes pressed Marina on cross. Did you ever hear Isabel threaten her husband? No. Did she ever confess to wanting him dead? No. Isabel was afraid. You knew that, didn't you? Marina looked down. Yes. Rhodes turned to the jury. Fear can make us seem strange, but fear isn't guilt. The shocking revelation. Midway through the trial, Rhodes introduced new evidence, a blurred security video recovered from a traffic camera near the villa on the night of the murder. It showed a figure in a dark hoodie approaching the house around 2:13 a.m., half an hour before the estimated time of death. This individual, Rhodes said, was never identified. Yet the police dismissed the footage as unrelated. Carter countered, it was too grainy. No clear features, no license plate, no evidence that they entered the house. But it raises doubt, Rhodes said, a reasonable doubt. The courtroom buzzed again. The jury's eyes day. After day, the jury watched Isabel. Some avoided eye contact, others studied her, as if trying to read a hidden message behind her calm face. Was she traumatized, calculating, misunderstood? In a moment of unscripted vulnerability, Isabel broke down on the stand when describing her last memory of her husband. I was upstairs, she said, voice cracking. I heard the glass shatter, and then nothing. Just silence. I ran down and he was on the floor. Carter objected to the tears as manipulation. Rhodes responded, grief doesn't come with a timer. It erupts when it must. The judge allowed the testimony. A nation watches. Outside the courtroom, the case had become a media circus. Talk shows debated her guilt. Online forums became battlegrounds. People who never met Isabel were convinced they knew her soul. But inside those 4 courtroom walls, the fate of one woman rested in the hands of 12 strangers, caught between forensic data and emotional intuition. As the trial neared its end, the tension thickened. The jury was days away from deliberation, and no one, not even the attorneys, could confidently predict what they would decide. The courtroom lights dimmed for closing arguments. The truth was no longer enough. Only belief could save or damn her now. The courtroom had gone quiet. As the gavel fell, signaling the end of arguments, 12 jurors filed into a private chamber with one monumental task: to decide whether Isabel Morrow was guilty of murder. The door shut behind them, and with it, the world held its breath. Inside, the air was thick with tension. 12 strangers sat around a long mahogany table. Some scribbled notes nervously, others crossed their arms or stared at the floor. They had heard every witness, seen every photo, felt every uncomfortable silence. Now, they had to come to a unanimous conclusion: guilty or not guilty. The foreman, a composed man in his 50s named Douglas, began the discussion. Let's take an initial vote, he said. 10 hands rose for guilty, 2 did not. Silence. The 2 holdouts were Clara, a literature professor with sharp eyes and a quiet, analytical tone, and Brandon, a young mechanic with an empathetic streak and a gut instinct that something wasn't right. I just think we need to talk more, Clara said. The evidence feels circumstantial. It's strong, but not definitive. Brandon nodded. There's that video, the guy in the hoodie. If we don't know who he is, how can we say for sure she was alone that night? Tension rose quickly. The push for a verdict. Several jurors became visibly frustrated. Elena, a corporate executive, spoke sharply. You heard the forensic report. Her prints were on the knife. She didn't call for help. She lied about the timeline. But she was in shock, Brandon argued. Or she was covering her tracks, someone else snapped. Clara leaned forward. What if we're wrong? This isn't just a mistake, it's someone's life. Douglas held up a hand. Let's walk through the case again, all of it, slowly. And so they did. Hour after hour, they dissected each piece. The fingerprints, the shattered glass, the timeline, the ambiguous statements. Isabel's quiet breakdown on the stand, the mysterious figure in the grainy security footage. Every detail became a battleground, shadows of uncertainty. By the second day, the room had shifted. Elena had softened. She admitted that the security footage raised doubt, however small. Other jurors started to crack under the weight of uncertainty. Was Isabel cold and calculating, or simply a woman lost in the aftermath of trauma? Brandon replayed the 911 call out loud, Isabel's shaky voice whispering, "He's not breathing. Oh my God, I don't know what happened." It didn't sound like someone rehearsed. It sounded broken. "She never asked if he was dead," one juror said. "Maybe she already knew," Clara replied quietly. The truth wasn't getting clearer. It was becoming foggier. A vote redefined. On the third day, they voted again. The tally, 7 guilty, 5 not guilty. The split exposed the growing doubt. Douglas, the foreman, seemed exhausted. "If we're unsure, really unsure, we have a responsibility to say so." "Reasonable doubt," Clara added. "This case, it feels like a house built on shadows, and we're being asked to light a match and burn it down." Some jurors sat in silence. A few nodded. One wept. The weight of the decision was crushing. Outside the jury room. While the jury debated, the outside world speculated. Headlines screamed, "Ice Queen or wronged woman?" Talk shows brought in legal experts. Polls showed the public evenly divided. The victim's family sat anxiously through every hour, desperate for closure. Isabel remained isolated in her holding cell, her fate spinning on the edge of a knife. Her attorney, Alexander Rhodes, waited anxiously. In all his years of courtroom drama, he'd never encountered a case this evenly balanced. 12 people with 12 different truths, he said. That's the battlefield. The final vote. By day 4, they knew they couldn't drag it out longer. The foreman asked for one final vote. The room went still. One by one, they raised their hands. Not guilty. The decision was made. Not unanimously in belief, but in principle. They could not convict beyond a reasonable doubt. They filled out the paperwork in solemn silence. As they returned to the courtroom, the energy shifted. Everyone sensed it. Isabel looked up from her seat, pale and almost dazed. The judge read the verdict aloud, not guilty. Gasps rang out. Some cheered, others cried. Isabel collapsed into her attorney's arms, shaking uncontrollably. But as she walked out of the courtroom a free woman, something hung heavy in the air. Not vindication, not celebration, just silence. Because while the court had made its decision, the truth of what happened that night still remained locked inside a lake house and inside a woman who may never tell the full story. The courtroom emptied, but the story of Isabel Moreau was far from over. The verdict of not guilty sparked a wave of reactions that rippled through the town, the media, and the hearts of everyone involved. The public's reaction outside the courthouse. The crowd was divided. Some hailed the decision as a triumph of justice, proof that the legal system worked to protect the innocent. Others saw it as a miscarriage of justice, a failure to hold a killer accountable. Social media exploded. Hashtags like Justice for Lucas and Free Isabel trended worldwide. Forums and comment sections filled with theories, accusations, and conspiracy claims. The town of Fairview became a microcosm of a larger debate. How do you find truth when certainty is impossible? News outlets debated endlessly. Legal experts dissected the evidence in the verdict. Some praised the jury's caution, highlighting the importance of reasonable doubt. Others criticized the prosecution's case as flawed, incomplete, or rushed. The victim's family. For the family of Lucas Bennett, the pain was raw and palpable. His mother, Helen, gave a tearful statement. "We will never stop searching for the truth. Lucas deserves justice." Lucas's younger sister, Emily, launched a social media campaign to keep the case in the public eye. "We want answers. We want to know who really did this," she said. Their grief became a rallying cry for those who felt the case left too many questions unanswered. Isabel's new life. Freed but fractured, Isabel Moreau faced a world that had branded her both victim and suspect. The months that followed were a struggle to reclaim her identity beyond the headlines. She moved out of Fairview, seeking anonymity in a new city. Yet everywhere she went, whispers followed. Her lawyer, Alexander Rhodes, remained a steadfast advocate. "Isabel's life will never be the same," he said. "The court freed her body, but the court of public opinion is another battle." Theories and speculations. Despite the verdict, the case fueled endless speculation. Who was the man in the hoodie? The grainy footage remained unresolved, a ghost haunting the investigation. Some suggested an intruder, others a hired assassin, Or perhaps a tragic coincidence? Was Isabel protecting someone? Rumors swirled about secret relationships, hidden motives, and dark pasts. Could it have been an accident? Some proposed the confrontation escalated unexpectedly, leading to a fatal injury with no intent. Amateur sleuths and armchair detectives pored over the case files, posting their theories online, some bizarre, others eerily plausible. The role of media. Media coverage itself became a player in the story. Sensational headlines and biased reporting stirred emotions and shaped public opinion, sometimes blurring facts with fiction. Documentaries, podcasts, and true crime shows delved into the case, keeping it alive in the public's imagination. Each retelling introduced new perspectives, sometimes contradicting earlier narratives. The broader impact. The Moreau case sparked discussions beyond the courtroom about justice, media ethics, and the limits of evidence. Lawmakers debated reforms to forensic technology, jury instructions, and protections for victims and defendants. Fairview itself grappled with its identity. Was it a town marked by tragedy, or a community resilient in the face of uncertainty? Unanswered questions. As years passed, some questions lingered. Was the jury's verdict correct, or was justice elusive? Would new evidence ever come to light? Could Isabel's silence be broken, or was she destined to carry her secrets forever? The story of Isabel Moreau remains a haunting reminder that truth is often layered, complicated, and incomplete. As the story of Isabel Moreau draws to a close, we are left not with neat answers, but with the complexity of human nature and the often blurry lines between truth and justice. This case is more than just a trial. It is a window into the fragile balance of evidence, emotion, and interpretation that defines the criminal justice system. It reminds us that behind every headline, in a web of lives changed forever. Victims, accused, families, and communities all searching for closure. In the quiet aftermath, we reflect on what justice really means. Is it the certainty of guilt and punishment, or is it the protection of the innocent, even when doubt remains? The Isabel Moreau case challenges us to confront these questions. It pushes us to examine how society deals with trauma, suspicion, and the thirst for retribution. But perhaps the most important lesson is the power of empathy, to hold space for all involved, recognizing pain without rushing to judgment. In this age of viral stories and instant opinions, the case stands as a call for patience, critical thinking, and compassion. Looking ahead, the story may have ended in the courtroom, but the quest for truth never truly ends. New evidence could emerge, new witnesses might come forward, or new perspectives could shed light on the shadows. Technology advances, forensic methods improve, and cold cases around the world are solved decades later. Hope remains alive. More importantly, the Isabel Moreau case serves as a reminder to those who seek justice. The road is long, winding, and often uncertain, but the pursuit itself, relentless and honest, is what keeps the light burning. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you joining us on this journey into one of the most gripping and complex cases of recent times. True crime stories like this remind us that real life is often stranger and more complicated than fiction. For those who want to explore more untold stories, unsolved mysteries, and in-depth crime documentaries, stay with us. Stay glued to the Untold Trace. Here on the Untold Trace, we dedicate ourselves to bringing you stories that don't just inform, but provoke thought, empathy, and a deeper understanding of the human condition. From chilling mysteries to jaw-dropping investigations, we promise to keep uncovering the untold truths that others overlook. So, if you want to be part of a community that values depth, honesty, and relentless pursuit of facts, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and never miss an episode. Because with the Untold Trace, every story matters, every voice is heard, and every truth deserves to be told.